In the heart of Washington, D.C., bright studio lights glared across a packed television set, where a highly anticipated national interview was about to begin. Senator John Kennedy stepped onto the stage with his usual calm demeanor, his presence steady and unbothered, as though he had strolled in from a porch conversation rather than a political spotlight. Across from him sat Representative Adam Schiff, posture poised, brows sharp with intention, ready for what many expected to be a debate full of pointed accusations. The audience held their breath as the host introduced both men, knowing the tension between them had been building for months. Cameras rolled, viewers tuned in, and the atmosphere thickened like a storm rolling in from distant hills. It was the kind of moment where truth, perception, and personality collided on live television. And without warning, the quiet before the storm broke. Adam began speaking first, launching into a lengthy critique that rolled across the room like polished glass, smooth yet edged. His words were carefully chosen, each syllable crafted to corner his opponent, to challenge his sincerity, to provoke reaction. But John Kennedy listened with an expression that remained almost gentle, eyes steady, as though he were listening to the wind rather than accusations. The audience shifted uncomfortably as Schiff's tone sharpened, growing more insistent, framing John's previous statements as careless and out of touch. The studio filled with that subtle crackle of confrontation, the kind that makes hearts race and fingers tighten on armrests. Yet the senator still did not speak. He simply waited, and when he finally looked up, the entire room leaned forward as if gravity itself had changed direction. John cleared his throat softly and began with a voice both warm and unshaken, speaking not in the language of attack but of clarity and reflection. He addressed the points raised with the ease of someone who had thought long and deeply about them, not reacting but responding. He spoke of the nation not as a battlefield of parties, but as a house shared by people who needed one another more than they realized. His tone reminded the audience of a well-worn library, quiet but full of truths waiting to be found. And just when viewers assumed the conversation would settle into polite disagreement, Schiff interrupted sharply, pushing again, insisting that Kennedy was being evasive. The tension snapped once more, until Kennedy leaned forward with the line that would steal the breath from everyone present. With a calm as steady as oak roots in deep soil, Kennedy said, "Adam, I admire how hard you work to sound certain. But sometimes certainty is just fear wearing a borrowed suit." The room froze. The sentence hung in the studio air like a struck bell, resonant and undeniable. Schiff blinked, stunned, searching for a response that didn't come. The audience gasped, some softly, some audibly, unable to hide their shock. Even the camera operators paused, forgetting momentarily that they were filming. The words were not cruel. They were revealing, and in that moment, the conversation shifted entirely. The host attempted to regain control of the interview, but the dynamic had changed. Schiff tried to continue, but his voice wavered, losing the earlier force. Kennedy, still composed, spoke gently about fear, about how political life often rewarded noise over truth, performance over sincerity. He explained that he too had known fear, that every leader had, and the real test was what one did with it. His vulnerability softened the atmosphere, dissolving the tension that moments before had threatened to break into open hostility. The audience no longer looked at two opponents. They saw two human beings, and the cameras captured every heartbeat of that transformation. After the broadcast ended, the studio buzzed with conversations and whispered reflections. People who had walked in expecting a verbal brawl had witnessed something far more intimate, an unexpected moment of honesty in a political world often built on spectacle. Schiff, humbled, approached Kennedy privately, and their conversation continued away from the lights. No one knew what was said, only that they emerged with quieter expressions and a shared nod of understanding. Sometimes real progress happens not where people shout the loudest, but where they finally stop to listen. The audience filed out into the evening air, still carrying the weight of what they had seen. Some felt hopeful, others reflective, but no one left unchanged. The moment had not been about victory or humiliation. It was about revelation. A reminder that dignity can disarm conflict more powerfully than fury ever could. And even those who had walked in with firm opinions found themselves reconsidering something, whether it was their views, their tone, or their assumption of certainty. In the weeks that followed, the clip of the exchange spread across screens nationwide, sparking discussions in diners, classrooms, and living rooms. Some praised Kennedy's composure, others admired Schiff's passion, but most importantly, people were talking about how we speak to each other, not just about what we argue. The conversation had shifted away from winning toward understanding. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. John Kennedy returned home to Louisiana soon after, greeting familiar roads and faces with renewed gratitude. The moment on television had changed something in him too, not his values, but the weight of them. He realized that the world didn't just need stronger arguments, it needed stronger hearts. Leaders could disagree fiercely but still share respect, and ordinary people could choose that too every day. Politics was not the only place where fear wore a borrowed suit. As the sun set beyond the bayous, Kennedy stood quietly, listening to cicadas sing their dusk chorus. The lesson was simple yet profound. Words have power, not just to wound or to boast, but to reveal, to connect, to heal when spoken with honesty. And the world, tired and divided, was starving for honesty spoken with courage. He whispered to himself, almost like a prayer, "May we all speak so we can finally hear one another."